hung high in the ink-black sky, casting a pale glow over the desolate cemetery. Its faded gravestones stood like sentinels, bearing witness to the passage of time and the countless souls that lay beneath. It was a place of sorrow and finality, a place where the living rarely ventured. But for a group of curious teenagers, the lure of the unknown was too strong to resist. It was a crisp autumn night when 5 friends Alex, Sarah, Mark, Emily, and Jason gathered on the outskirts of town. They had heard whispers and rumors about the cemetery, tales of restless spirits and haunted graves. Intrigued by the macabre stories, they made a pact to explore the sacred grounds under the shroud of midnight. As the clock struck 12, the group ventured into the cemetery, their footsteps muffled by the fallen leaves. The air grew colder, and an eerie silence settled upon them, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. They navigated their way through the rows of headstones, the only sources of light being the flickering beams of their flashlights. Laughter and nervous excitement filled the air as they dared each other to approach the oldest, most weathered tombs. With each step, the shadows grew darker, the atmosphere thicker with a palpable sense of unease. But still, they pressed on, driven by youthful bravado and the thrill of the forbidden. In their reckless exploration, they stumbled upon a forgotten mausoleum, its iron gates creaking ominously in the wind. Drawn to its decaying grandeur, they pushed open the heavy doors and stepped into a realm that time had forgotten. The air inside was stale, tinged with the scent of decay, and the walls were adorned with faded frescoes, their meanings lost to the ages. Curiosity consumed the group, and they scattered, exploring the crypt's dark recesses. As they ventured deeper, a sense of dread settled upon them like a suffocating shroud. Whispers echoed through the corridors, their voices barely audible, yet undeniably present. Shadows danced on the walls, taking on sinister shapes that seemed to watch their every move. As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew more oppressive. The once exhilarating adventure now felt like a grave mistake. Unease turned to fear, and fear turned to panic. They called out to each other, their voices trembling, but the only response they received was the mocking echo of their own words. Suddenly, the group realized that Jason was missing. Frantic, they scoured every corner of the mausoleum, their flashlights illuminating the despair etched on their faces. But Jason was nowhere to be found. The air grew heavier, as if filled with the mournful cries of the lost souls that lingered within the crypt. In a final act of desperation, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber, concealed behind a crumbling wall. As they cautiously approached, a chilling sight met their eyes. Jason stood motionless, his eyes vacant and glazed over, staring at a mural of tortured souls, their twisted visages frozen in eternal agony. Terror filled their hearts as they realized the truth: they were not alone in the mausoleum. Something sinister, an ancient force, had claimed Jason, trapping him within its clutches. The group huddled together, trembling with a fear that words could not express. As the night wore on, their spirits dwindled, overshadowed by the darkness that surrounded them. One by one, the remaining friends succumbed to the evil presence that gripped the crypt, their souls forever trapped in the realm between life and death. Only their whispered cries and the faint echo of their footsteps remained as a testament to their tragic fate. The cemetery resumed its eternal stillness, the spirits of the departed claiming yet another group of curious souls who dared to trespass in their domain. Their lives forever entwined with the tragic history of the mausoleum, their fate sealed within its crumbling walls. Their names forgotten, their stories lost to time, serving as a chilling reminder of the dangers that lie beneath the surface of our mortal existence. On an unusually dark and moonless night, Jake drove down the desolate highway. He had been on the road for hours, his eyelids heavy with exhaustion. The distant city lights beckoned him, promising rest and respite from the long journey. Just as Jake was contemplating pulling over to take a brief nap, he noticed a figure on the side of the road. A hitchhiker. His tattered clothes clung to his gaunt frame, and a wildness gleamed in his eyes. Jake's better judgment urged him to pass, but curiosity got the better of him, and he slowed down, eventually coming to a stop. The hitchhiker approached the car, a sinister smile dancing on his lips. His voice dripped with charm as he introduced himself as Alex, claiming to be heading in the same direction as Jake. A chill ran down Jake's spine, but he couldn't put his finger on why. Jake, against his better judgment, decided to give Alex a ride. As the miles passed, Alex's presence grew more unsettling. Without looking, Jake could sense Alex staring at him out of the corner of his wildly gleaming eyes. His conversations were laced with dark humor, and even darker stories that painted a twisted view of the world never seemed to end. Jake's unease deepened, but he couldn't bring himself to kick the hitchhiker out of his car. There was something about Alex that had a grip on him, holding him captive to his sinister charm. Minutes stretched into hours, and Jake's anxiety mounted. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was riding alongside a predator, a ravenous wolf masquerading as a harmless hitchhiker. All the signs were there. The subtle hints that sent shivers down his spine. A glance at a newspaper article about a series of unsolved murders, and sudden changes in Alex's demeanor whenever they passed a police car. Dread consumed Jake's every thought, but fear kept him silent. He knew deep down that confronting Alex could become violent or even deadly, and the thought of the hitchhiker's true nature was too terrifying to comprehend. As they neared their destination, a heavy silence hung between them. Jake's mind raced, contemplating his next move. He knew he had to escape Alex's clutches, but time was running out. The city lights shimmered on the horizon, mocking him with the promise of safety. Finally, unable to bear the torment any longer, Jake finally decided to confront Alex. With a trembling voice, he mustered the courage to ask about the newspaper articles, about the unsolved murders that seemed to follow their path. Alex's eyes gleamed with wicked jubilation, and a chilling smile twisted his face. In that moment, the truth was revealed. Alex wasn't just a hitchhiker, he was a killer, a predator who used the open road as his hunting ground. Fear paralyzed Jake as Alex lunged at him, his hands closing around his throat. The car swerved wildly as Jake fought for his life, desperately clawing at Alex's hands. But the hitchhiker's grip was unyielding, and darkness began to cloud Jake's vision. In his final moments, a collection of memories, dreams, and aspirations that would never come to fruition flashed in his mind. The road to his salvation had become the road to his ruin, and he had fallen victim to the very monster he had led into his car. The car careened off the road, its twisted wreckage served as a grim testament to the horrors that had unfolded. The city lights glowed in the distance, oblivious to the tragedy that had befallen Jake. And as dawn broke over the horizon, the world continued on, ignorant of the twisted tale that had unfolded on that desolate highway. Moon lit the night sky, casting an eerie glow upon the dense forest. Sarah and Mark huddled close together, their tent serving as a flimsy shield against the chilling wind that swept through their campsite. They had ventured deep into the heart of the wilderness for a romantic weekend getaway, seeking solace in the tranquility of nature. Little did they know, their idyllic retreat would soon turn into a nightmare they could never forget. As they sat around their crackling campfire, sharing stories and laughter, an unsettling silence enveloped the surroundings. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the approaching horror. A rustling in the underbrush caught their attention, causing both Sarah and Mark to exchange uneasy glances. "What was that?" Sarah whispered, her voice laced with unease. Mark shrugged, attempting to dismiss the growing sense of dread. "Probably just a raccoon or something. Don't worry, babe." Reluctantly, they retreated to their tent, hoping to find solace in the confines of their sleeping bags. But sleep eluded them as the night became an orchestra of strange sounds, a distant howl that pierced the stillness, branches snapping under immense weight, and heavy footfalls thudding closer and closer. And closer. Their hearts pounded in their chests as the creature's presence and stench grew more tangible with each passing moment. Panic set in, and they reached for their flashlight, desperate to catch a glimpse of the unknown terror that haunted them. The beam of light pierced the darkness, revealing a towering figure standing just outside their tent, a hulking creature, resembling a massive, grotesque version of Bigfoot. Frozen in terror, Sarah and Mark could only watch as the creature's eyes glowed with an unholy light, fixated on them. With a guttural growl, it lunged forward, ripping through the tent's flimsy fabric as if it were paper. The couple screamed, their cries lost in the wilderness. Running for their lives, they fled into the labyrinth of trees, the creature steadily gaining on them. No matter how fast they ran, they couldn't shake its pursuit. Its immense strides closed the gap between them, the stench of its foul breath washing over them like a suffocating fog. In a desperate bid for survival, they stumbled upon an abandoned cabin, seemingly untouched by time. They slammed the door shut, praying it would hold against the creature's brute strength. They peered through a crack, gasping for breath, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and fear. As the minutes ticked by, the forest fell silent once more. The creature seemed to have vanished, leaving them with a sliver of hope. But the relief was short-lived when they noticed something peculiar. The cabin lacked any windows, leaving them in complete darkness. Suddenly, a low prolonged growl resonated from within the cabin. Their hearts sank as they realized they were not alone. Whatever was hunting them had found its way inside, and their shelter had become their prison. Terrified, they clung to each other, their fingertips trembling in the dark. The growls grew louder, accompanied by an otherworldly scraping sound. Panic surged through their veins, pushing them to the brink of madness. And then, silence. As the darkness consumed them, their screams and cries ceased, leaving behind an eerie stillness that echoed through the night. The cabin stood empty once more, devoid of life. Weeks passed, and the incident became another tale whispered around campfires, each retelling more embellished than the last. The mystery of Sarah and Mark's disappearance remained unsolved, the forest unwilling to divulge its secrets. To this day, campers claim to hear the sounds of their desperate cries in the wind, a chilling reminder of the horror that lurks within the woods. And while some dare to venture deep into the wilderness, driven by curiosity or pure foolishness, none have ever returned to tell the tale. For in that forest, the creature that prowled the shadows still waits, its malevolence undiminished. And as long as the moon hangs high in the night sky, it will continue its relentless hunt, forever tormenting those who dare disturb its domain. The mystery continues on, trapped within the twisted heart of the woods, its ending as mystifying as the night itself.